You found yourself on another episode of Locked On Bulls. Clint Capela is apparently on the Bulls' radar as far as acquiring this offseason. We'll talk a little bit about why that could and could not make some sense for the Chicago Bulls. Also, the Kings apparently want to try to get a trade in for both Zach LaVine and Haize Caruso. How feasible is that realistically? And would the Bulls even bite on that type of trade to give up one of their best trade chips in Haize Caruso and the Zach LaVine deal? And then lastly, Monty Williams is fired by the Detroit Pistons. We're going to get to all that and more right after this.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily Chicago Bulls podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. I'm Haize, host and creator of Chicago Bulls Central and Chicago Bears Central YouTube pages and podcasts. Pat should be joining us here at some point during the show. Let's see if he shows up. But today's episode is also brought to you guys by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. With that said, let's go ahead and get into it today, guys. So it came out yesterday that the Chicago Bulls have some reported interest in Clint Capela. And it kind of makes some sense in some ways. As far as like the skill set of Clint Capela, I could see it making sense. Right? Like the skill set of Clint Capela, somebody he just goes out there and understands his job. He gets you a double-double. He gives effort defensively. And the Atlanta Hawks fan base has kind of turned on him recently. Listen, apparently that goes around. You kind of get tired of centers after so many years, but in no way is Clint Capela a perfect player, right? Averaging 11.5 points per game, 10.6 rebounds per game. He does that on 57% shooting, by the way, as well. He had the 13th best shooting percentage in the league, weirdly enough. He also gets you over a block and a half per game, right under a steal per game as well, and he does that in 25 minutes. Now, some people are going to say, well, Haize, that's very similar production to what Andre Drummond gives us, but Andre Drummond does it in about 10 less minutes, and he makes about $16 million less, right? And that's where the questions for me started popping up in this interest in Clint Capela is that Clint Capela, the player, right? If you're bringing him in, let's say the Bulls aren't necessarily looking to draft a center. Common thought, a lot of people think the Bulls are going to go after center. It's a very deep position draft for centers. But let's say they go after a guard, they go after a wing, they go after something different. Bringing Clint Capela in as a backup to Nikola Vucevic potentially makes some sense. Let's not act like he hasn't started. Clint Capela is also pretty durable. Playing at least 63 games in the last 4 seasons. He started all those games, by the way. So you're not really, I don't think, looking at Clint Capela for a backup. Like, I can understand it, but you're not necessarily looking at him backup. Much better defensive player than Nikola Vucevic as well. So then it starts raising some questions on, okay, if we're acquiring Clint Capela, does that mean that the Bulls feel like they have a trade to get rid of Nikola Vucevic? Clint Capela makes a little over $2 million more than Vooch, but at the same time, he has 1 year left on his contract. So it could make some sense that if you do move off Nikola Vucevic, you can bring in Clint Capela. Maybe you do draft a center at that point in time. You have that young center maybe be your backup right away. Maybe you feel confident in Dama Sanogo to be your backup center. But what happens with Vooch? And that's one of the biggest questions in this. Vooch has little to no trade value. And, reportedly, right, the Bulls would almost have to give up a favorable asset to move on from Nikola Vucevic. Now, are you throwing in Vooch in an Haize Caruso type deal to make that more favorable? Maybe, right? But even then you've got to look at the $22 million that Clint Capela's contract is. How do the Bulls match that? Unless you're using Vooch, unless you're using DeMar DeRozan, unless you are attaching him to Haize Caruso in a much larger deal, it just doesn't seem like it would be an easy acquisition for the Bulls to make. Or is he part of the Zach LaVine trade? Expiring contract is a little over half of Zach LaVine's contract, so maybe that, right? And, 3-team trades are definitely options, but I just don't see the straightforward path of acquiring a Clint Capela. Not to say that they can't. If the Bulls theoretically just had Clint Capela as a player that they absolutely must walk away in this offseason, acquiring and having on their roster, they could do it. But it's, what are you giving up for Clint Capela? And like I said, I don't want to make it seem like Clint Capela is a bad player by any stretch of the imagination. He's not. He's just a player that plays a very specific role, and he thrives in that role. He understands how to do that role, but he is 30 years old, right? Still productive player. Like I said, playing over 25 minutes per game last year. averaging a double-double. He's still like when you know that somebody can just go out there and get you a double-double, it makes it easier for a lot of the other things you do around that player, right? Because you at least know that's the production you're getting from them at the bare minimum. But how do you acquire it, and what sense does it make for the Bulls? Hearing this trade to me spoke to, I could only see the Bulls making this trade if there are other moves coming in, some other fairly big moves coming at that, right? And like I said, unless it's part of like a 3-team trade for Zach LaVine, I don't necessarily see the Hawks being in on just acquiring Zach LaVine, but maybe I'm wrong on that. Weirder things have happened. This is life. So there are those options there for the Chicago Bulls they would have to look at. But like I said, Clint Capela as a player, just overall, just at a baseline, just looking at who Clint Capela is, not worrying about the contract, not worrying about where he does fit, what he doesn't fit. He's a player that you know what he's going to bring. And there's always spots for on teams for players that you just know what they're going to bring, and they just know and understand how to do their job. And when they know and understand how to do their job and they thrive in that, there's always going to be a spot for you. Now, would Clint Capela be willing to take up a backup role? I don't know. I'm not going to act like I know as much about Clint Capela to know if he is, should, or would. I have no idea if he would accept that. But to me, if you acquire Clint, it's to be probably your starting center, in my opinion. But maybe I could be wrong on that, and they could be looking to acquire Clint Capela for a different reason. As we got Pat the Designer in the building, go ahead and bring Pat up. What's going on, Pat?
What's good?
What's good? What's good? I was just talking on the Clint Capela thing. How do you feel about hearing that the Bulls have some interest in Clint Capela? I was talking to you just to kind of catch you up. Like, I understand who Clint is as a player, but it's not like it's a straightforward acquisition. We don't know what they're going to do with Vooch. I doubt he's going to accept being a backup role. But I like Clint because Clint Capela is a player that he knows who he is and he thrives in what he does. But how you feeling, Pat?
To me, first off, what up? To me, you only go out there and get Clint Capela if you plan on moving on from Vooch.
Yeah.
Like that's the only situation that I'd be interested in Clint Capela, because to me, as a player, he's a starting center. Like, I get it, right? Like, oh well, he doesn't do as much. He doesn't shoot the three. He's a starting center. He rebounds the ball really well. Of course, we know what he is in a pick and roll. I'd love to see him in a pick and roll with Kobe White, but you're not playing Clint Capela 26 minutes a game. You're letting him play the game that he's out there to play. And
he does average 26 minutes per game for the last 4 seasons. So you just hit the nail right. That's literally what he averages.
Him. I guess I'll take that back. I wouldn't do that with the Bulls though. Like, to me, that wouldn't be how I would play him. I guess if you want more shooting, like you do that, right? That's probably why he's played 26 minutes a game in Atlanta. But I would let him play. He's a big that can go out there and rim protect, and that can go out there and give you the rebounds. You put shooters around him. Like, to me, that's the logic that I would go with if I'm acquiring Clint Capela. But again, right, the logic and the Bulls don't really go together.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you would have said the same thing about Drum, right? But like, we haven't had shooters, and that's what I was like. If we were to acquire Clint Capela, to me, it means that there's a subsequent, or maybe a prior, but there's other moves that have to happen to make that make sense for this roster, I think.
Yeah, you got to change the whole structure of this team around. Like, you can't sign Clint Capela to this team and send him out there as the team is constructed. You don't have enough shooters. Even Atlanta didn't have enough shooters.
Unless they just don't care. That's another, and there's another aspect of this, I guess we can look at it as well, is that, yeah, I mean, unless they are drafting a young center, and they're more so looking at Clint Capela as an expiring contract, whereas they make sure that the center that they draft is going to be a starter either by the end of the season or next year. There's that aspect of things too.
I just think no matter who the center is that you put on the court, you need to put shooters around them. We keep doing this stupid thing where we're trying to make our center one of our main shooters, which is fine if your center's a shooter. But we don't have a shooting center. We have a big man that can shoot. Those are two very different things. I keep telling people this, and that to me is the biggest problem that the Bulls continue to have. It's why Larry Markkinen didn't work. It's why Nikola Mirotic didn't work. You keep trying to put big men out there and just say, no, he's basically another shooting guard. No, he's not. He's somebody that can stretch the floor. And
Larry was that though. Larry's the bad comparison for that. Larry was that, at least for the first 2 years, and then he fell off because
but that's the thing. He fell off because you were trying to force him to be that shooter. You were trying to force him to be that guy that, like, hey, he's going to be shooting the basketball 15 times a game. And it's like, okay, well, who's rebounding? Oh, we got Thaddeus Young down there. You know what I mean? Like that. Like to me, you're putting your big man in bad positions on a consistent basis. And I think that Lowry can shoot. I don't know if I'd say Lowry. Like Lowry gets hot. Yeah, Lowry can knock down the 3-ball. But
he's a good, rhythm shooter. Is good.
He's a really good rhythm shooter. But if Lowry's not hot, it shouldn't be a mandate that, hey, he's a part of our offense knocking down the 3-ball. And I think that's the part where even with Nikola Vucevic, when Vuce getting a stride, Vuce can go 6 for 8. But when Vooch is off, you shouldn't be telling him to take 8 3-pointers. So
yeah, the thing is how much it takes for Vooch. If Vooch is only in stride once every 18 games, but I get what you're getting on that. Overall, I think we both agree. Like the Clint Capela is like, I don't hate Clint Capela as a player. It's just that for this acquisition to make sense, there has to be some other moves coming. Yeah,
you got to change some other moves coming.
But like I said, unless they're just looking at it as acquiring an expiring contract because he is at the end of the deal. Like, so they may not give a damn how the fit is for one season. Just be like, hey, we're going to pay you. Shout out to Chicago. Go get you some Italian beefs and keep it pushing.
Yeah, pretty much. That seems like that's what we're heading for.
Yeah, that's a fact. But next up, we're going to be talking about a reported interest that the Kings have in trying to acquire both Zach LaVine and Haize Caruso in the trade. But before we get into that, I got to talk to you guys about one of our sponsors, and that is eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, Pat. Moving on from that. So this one came out as well yesterday, but with the Clint Capela thing, it kind of got buried. Is that the Sacramento Kings apparently have already made calls to the Bulls on trying to acquire both Zach LaVine and Haize Caruso in a deal that's centered around Kevin Huerter, Harrison Barnes, and draft compensation is the reported deal on this one. How do you feel about this potential trade there, Pat?
I mean, it's a trade on the table. You got to consider it. That's the problem that you're in right now. Like, am I excited about getting back? I'll say this. I'd like Kevin Huerter on this team. Am I excited at losing AC for that? Probably not. Like, you'd have to come with some serious draft compensation if I'm sending you AC because of the conversation that is around that. But clearly we know AC is not going anywhere. So this trade is dead in the water already. But I guess if it's just for Zach LaVine, right, and you want to add Zach LaVine to that team, and you just want to give up Harrison Barnes and Kevin Huerter, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, I'd be here for it. Like I said, any Zach LaVine deal that's on the table, that is a legit deal on the table, is let's do it. Because you need to start moving in the right direction. I hate to give up Zach LaVine for nothing, but at this point, you got to give up Zach LaVine and try to get anything back, because people aren't going to give you the world because they know that there's a relationship there that seems irreparable with the Chicago Bulls and Zach LaVine right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it boils down to. Like, it seems like the Bulls are focused on moving Zach LaVine by come hell or high water. It will come down to a few things. Like you said, if you're going to include Haize Caruso, the draft compensation part matters. They have a top 12 protected pick in 2025, which if they're making this pick, they are probably not. That's probably not going to be in the top 12 unless things go horribly wrong. But with Zach LaVine and Haize Caruso's injury history, it's a possibility. But They also have the number 43 pick in this draft and the number 15th pick, I believe, overall in this draft. Is that enough for you as far as the draft compensation piece? If it is the top 12 protected pick next year and the number 15 this year?
No, because I know I can get unprotected picks for Haize Caruso.
You don't know. We don't know that.
Well,
we don't know that for sure.
The top 10 picks, right? There were some that were called with protections on them. But,
Casey Johnson has actually came out and said that he has disputed that report by Will Gottlieb. So
Will getting cooked already.
I was like, hey, they gonna make you pay for breaking that news that nobody else had, my boy. Like, we ain't heard that.
Well, I mean, listen, here's the thing. I don't know.
Oh, and it's the 13th overall pick.
I would lean more towards agreeing with Casey than not, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Bulls have turned down Haize Caruso trades, right? Like it wouldn't shock me. And it wouldn't shock me if top 10 picks were offered. But at this point in time, I guess nobody knows what's really going on in the building, in the mind of AK. But I do feel like, based on what we saw last season, I don't think teams are out on Alex Caruso. And we know that there was unprotected draft compensation offered last season for Alex Caruso in a trade, and that the Bulls didn't want to take it last season. So I think that you could still get a similar deal. In fact, the fact that Alex finished the season the way he did, just like, oh, this dude's like phenomenal, and offensively is up, had an uptick in his game. I think that you see both of those as you could still go out and get unprotected draft compensation. So no, I wouldn't make this trade at all with Sacramento if it included Alex Caruso, because I feel there's better deals on the table.
Yeah, theoretically. I mean, but you also got to factor in, just because it's unprotected doesn't mean it's necessarily a better pick, because it could be from a team that's an unprotected pick, but yeah, it's 25.
But you also can get a pick that's included in this year's draft. So you're already talking to teams that are higher up in the draft. Like, there's teams out there that have already said, we don't want to pick here.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that they're. I mean, I get what you're saying. You're saying the hypothetical that, but I'm just saying, I guess I'm more so saying you can't take that as a foregone conclusion just because there's been rumors around that's actually on the board. Now, if that is legitimate,
well, I mean, there's no rumors with Houston. Houston literally was like, we don't want to make this pick. Like,
yeah, but that doesn't mean that they're interested in the Bulls. That's what I'm saying. That
they were one of the
Bulls.
Teams that was interested in Alex Caruso.
That was in the report that's been refuted now. That's what I'm saying.
That was a report well before that Houston.
No, that was an unsubstantiated rumor, bro. Like, that was just saying, that was one of those that was like, hey, the Houston Rockets don't want this pick. It could be Alex Caruso. It wasn't necessarily they're interested in Alex Caruso for the third overall
I
pick.
think NBC included them as one of the teams that was interested in Alex Caruso, but I may be wrong on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, ultimately, like I said, it's all guesswork at this point. And interest could mean one thing or another. A team being interested doesn't mean that a deal can actually get done, because their interest could be a one-sided interest that doesn't actually impact the Bulls. So, I mean, not that this is a great trade, because it's not. I do like Kevin Huerter, especially him being 25, going to be 26 years old next season. He's another player that understands his role. Took a dip shooting wise last year. I think he's having some offseason surgery as well, not on his shooting arm, but on the opposite arm. So all those concerns are there, and the Kings may be looking to move off of that to get something back that can help them. And we know that they are a team reportedly that is trying to make a move to make sure that they can go deeper in the playoffs next year. So I guess we'll see what happens ultimately there.
Yeah, we'll see what they try to end up building. I think the part that at the end of the day we all agree with is, yes, trade Zach LaVine. I mean,
is there anything? I mean, there's still some people that I see him in the comment section. Everybody else kind of trickles in there. Yeah, we don't need to trade Zach LaVine. We just need to acquire XYZ. And it's like, you do realize that if we keep Zach LaVine, like, the chances of acquiring anything else money wise is all but not. That's part of the reason why this trade is there. But hey, it is what it is. To each their own, bro. If people, there's somebody who said that it was Rap God Reloaded or whatever. I know I've seen him in your thing too as well. Like, he's like, well, technically, Lonzo Ball has more trade value than Zach LaVine now. And I literally was like,
sometimes you got to take a nap. You know what I mean?
Bro,
that's how they go.
Bro. Like, you had how late were you out drinking last night, bro? How late were you out drinking last night?
Sometimes you just got to take a nap. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's right. Trade value. Like, this man just traded cartilage with a dead person. You think that he has trade value in the NBA? Like, he traded a meniscus and cartilage with a deceased person.
Hey, bro, I'm telling you, bro, they got a room of dead legs up there, bro. I'm telling you right now, bro.
Jeff Tanaka's the one supplying the legs.
Jeff Tanaka's supplying straight knees, bro. Hey, that's nuts, bro. Jeff Tanaka gonna catch strays on this podcast forever, bro.
Forever.
That man moonwalked out there to go pick Chris Dunn and his teeth up off of the floor, bro. Jesus.
Hey, why is it that Chris Dunn didn't lose as many teeth as Derek White did?
Bro, Derek White got a full body to the face, though, bro. Like, I don't get the Celtics, bro. Like, first off, how they nose is not breaking. Like, it was Derek White this time. Somebody didn't Jason Tatum get stepped on in an earlier game in the playoffs this year? Or Jaylen Brown, one of them. Like, bro, like, the Celtics stay getting their faces stepped on.
That's crazy.
Keep your face off the floor, brother. He said, I lost teeth for this championship. You didn't have to. Y'all won by 30. There was no reason for you to lose teeth, brother.
I mean, if you're going to lose teeth for, like, Chris Dunn did it for a 15-point loss. At least he did it for a championship. Like,
no, he didn't do it for a championship. It just happened, and a championship was won. Those are two very different scenarios. That play impacted the championship. None. They won by 30. This man just lost his teeth. Like,
oh man, that is hilarious, man.
It says, smile, you're on candid camera. Hey, before we talk about how Monty Williams loses his job before Billy Donovan, we got to sit here and tell you guys all about FanDuel, man. Summertime means baseball, the NBA finals, and more. You can get it all. You can bet it all on FanDuel right now. New customers get $200 back in bonus bets with any $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet everything from finals MVP. Who's going to hit one out of the park? We know Mark Jackson is. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on and add a big win to your summer bucket list, especially with the WNBA getting going as well. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Visit FanDuel.com right now.
That's crazy.
Him losing teeth had nothing to do with them winning that ring. Bro.
I mean,
he just lost teeth, bro. He just lost teeth.
That's crazy.
Was that play impactful in any way to the game?
Yeah, for the entertainment value of it.
Just to see his smile at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. That made it worth it. That made it worth it. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh God.
But yeah, man. Anyway, moving on from that, man. Monty Williams gets fired. And initially I had thought this was the new GM. Apparently, no, the new GM was actually talking to Monty Williams almost every day since he's been hired. This was actually ownership stepping in and basically saying, hey, bro, it's Juneteenth. You're set free, my guy. That's what happened here, bro.
Listen. Listen, shout out to Monty Williams getting 65 M's for doing absolutely nothing over the next 5 years. Hey, I'm not mad at him at all. Now, I will say this, right? And this is the one thing for me that because I've instantly seen Bulls fans go, there it is. Go get Monty Williams. That's the answer. And my response to you is, have you watched the last 4 years? Or how long has he been there? 4 years, right?
No, Monty.
Monty
he just got there last year. Wait, 1 year. He was 1 year into a 5-year deal, bro. They made him the highest paid coach in the NBA.
No, they had what's his name last year?
Yeah,
they had or the year before that, the other black guy, who also was coach of the year, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't need you to go see Monty. Go get Monty Williams. Like to me, the talent on your team dictates how good of a coach you're going to be. The talent on your team dictates, unless you're a phenomenal coach, how successful you're going to be on the court. I don't know if the Bulls have that level of talent here. I just don't. And so I do think that there is yes, it would be nice to go get Monty Williams. You would probably get him at a massive discount. But realistically speaking, Monty Williams doesn't change the fact that this team is built horribly. And I don't think that he upgrades anything that we've got going on here with Billy Donovan.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying for Monty Williams to come here. I mean, listen, because that's not going to happen. Like, let's just be frank. It's not going to happen. Anybody who's hoping that the Bulls make a move to bring, no, it's not happening. I more so brought this up to say that this is an example of ownership. Like, again, keep in mind, they had to go to Monty Williams 3 times. He turned them down 3 times. On the 4th time, he said yes. He didn't believe in this roster. He didn't they had to give him that amount of money because that was the only thing that brought him here. He's still getting what he wants. And I don't think he signed, because keep in mind, he's going to get paid throughout the rest of this contract unless he signs another head coaching contract. At that point, they don't have to pay him once he becomes a head coach at another job. He's not taking another job for at least 2 years. He's going to collect at least half of that before he comes back to being a head coach.
Oh, you got to let the stink of Detroit get off of you.
I think people are reasonable enough to realize that not to blame him solely for the situation in Detroit. At least I would hope so. You can't just blame him for the situation in Detroit.
You definitely can't blame him solely, but the fact that it was that bad,
yeah,
I do have to look at coaching too. Like I can't just look at the players.
Because he didn't believe in these players. He coached like somebody who literally walked in and was like, "Y'all suck." So,
bro, facts, bro. Like, there's no belief in any of the players that they have there in Detroit, bro. Like, and it's just, I'll say this, right? The whole Monty Williams situation, to me, I just don't. I'm glad the Bulls aren't that yet, right? We're bad, but I'm glad that we're not Detroit. Like, bro,
to be that bad of a team and that bad of a city is wild. Like,
it's not a city, bro. It's a municipality. They haven't owned the city for a while. The only thing they own in Detroit that is Detroit is that bogus Hollywood sign that they put up. It's the only thing that Detroit owns.
That's hilarious,
bro. It's not funny. A city, bro. Is it? Actually, I've said this before. Because the city, I mean, it's basically unowned at this point. It's more like a town of squatters. Like, there's a bunch of people that just decided to stay there, and they was like, "I'm not giving up my house." And it was like, "Well, it's not really owned by anybody." It was like, that's okay. I don't fool with Detroit.
Oh man,
standing beef with everything Detroit.
Yeah, that's a fact. And they be saying Detroit versus everybody knows Detroit versus life. Like, because y'all are like, y'all barely living out there.
Detroit versus itself. Detroit versus them empty factories, bro.
Man, like, Jesus Christ, man. Yeah, y'all fighting tetanus every day. You making a choice, bro. Like, that's
the dogs got tetanus out there, bro. The dogs bite you. They don't give you rabies. They give you tetanus, bro. The squirrels give you an STD. getting tetanus by a dog is wild, bro. That's crazy. Bro. Yeah. It's some backward stuff going on out there, bro. It's like an episode of Rick and Morty out there.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, Monty Williams fired. Hey, live it up, Monty. Shout out to him. Billy Donovan's still employed. You know, there's that. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. Follow us on everything at Locked On Bulls. You can follow me on everything at Pat the Designer. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and showing love.
Absolutely. You guys can follow me at CEO Haize. You can follow us collectively at Locked On Bulls. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Locked On Bulls is free and available on every podcasting app and platform of your choice, as well as YouTube. For Pat the Designer, this has been Locked On Bulls. We out here. Peace, y'all.
Peace.